This thing right here is an Airofit Trainer. I used it for 5 years and it took my lung capacity from 5.9 liters to 11.7, and it helped me finish 5th at the Olympic Games. During those 5 years, I've been using this and the programs in the app for 5 to 10 minutes on a daily basis, 5 to 6 times per week. Already after 1 year, my lung capacity has skyrocketed by 25%, and I found this just to be an amazing tool. Airofit don't pay me to make this video. They gave me a discount code, and that's gonna give you 15% off. So I'm leaving that one in the description below for you to use if you end up buying an Airofit, whether it's the Active, Essential, or the Pro device. So clearly I felt and measured the difference when it comes to lung strength and ultimately sports performance using the Airofit. So I know it works for me. I've been tracking my results for years in terms of breathing, but obviously also on the field as an athlete. But in this video, I wanted to dive into what exactly there is when it comes to the science behind the Airofit and the improvements you get from not just the Airofit device, but in general lung strength training. The first thing I realized is that this is a very well explored field and topic. There are more than 1,000 studies when it comes to RMT, respiratory muscle training, meaning training that targets your entire respiratory system more as a whole, unlike the inspiratory strength training. Now that said, if you look at the scientific articles, the one that has the most evidence to be really working and having the biggest effect on your respiratory system, those will be the inhale strength sessions. So basically inhaling full force or a force that's adapted to your level. Those are the ones that you will benefit the most from. So if you cut down to the bone, those are the ones I also personally use when I taper and want to limit my use of the Airofit to just be as fresh as possible. When looking at multiple studies, I also wanted to know how little do you actually need to do to get a decent amount of benefit from using the Airofit or breath training. And studies show that down to 4 to 6 weeks of training with the Airofit, 5 to 10 minutes per day, so basically what I've been doing for years, is enough to give you a noticeable effect. In addition to that, just from personal experience, I do think a lot of it comes down to how you breathe technically. Are you using your entire lung system? Are you expanding omnidirectionally? Especially in sports like cycling or skating, where you have that crunch position, or even swimming where you can't breathe all the time. Well, in those sports, I do think you improve a lot just from understanding, technically speaking, how to actually use your lungs. Now, interesting studies that targeted those specific minimum or shorter durations periods of using the Airofit training. One from the Manchester University, they proved that 32.5% would be the average increase when it came to inspiratory strength, 32.5% increase when it came to respiratory strength, and then a 7%, which I find to be the very interesting number here, 7% increase in actual performance, meaning exercise efficiency. And that's also what I have taken from reading all these studies. The key message: you will obviously improve your respiratory strength. You'll be better using your lungs in so many different ways, whether it's actually being stronger in them, faster, stronger inhale, exhale, or also just being more calm. The threshold workouts on the Airofit are fantastic, especially if you're doing sports where you're going at a sub-maximum intensity, but still need a solid respiratory flow and be able to sustain that effort for a long period of time. But ultimately, you want that to transform or transfer into better sports performance, or just feeling better in your life, being healthier. And I think that is the key thing here. That is where I felt the Airofit helped me. So basically, by being stronger in your respiratory system, so because those muscles are stronger, they will just demand less of your total energy reserve. So you can drive that into the working muscles and then either sustain an effort for a longer period of time or even go harder than that. There's also a bunch of studies that really show that the sports where you improve the most, benefit the most. There's an interesting one where they compared how much, first of all, very interesting because they compared the different disciplines or different sports, how strong they are when it comes to the respiratory system. Very exciting numbers. I'm going to leave links to these studies in the description below for you to read, but also showing which ones where you benefit the most from the lung training. And there are studies specifically on skating, which obviously is my background, so I found those super interesting. And they go from improving your flying laps, so basically a 9-second effort, to a relay effort where you saw some really big improvements in the average lap times, going up by multiple percents, and we're talking Olympic level skaters. One thing I noticed that was pretty significant here is that you benefit even more from using the Airofit in sports where you are already limited by your precision in terms of breathing. And I do think that's because in addition to the strength, even though you use the Airofit in a neutral position, like I'm sitting right here, and you might be sitting watching this video, it does benefit you more in the sports where you are limited by, to some extent, your breath or your position as you breathe. Meaning cycling is a massive one, you're in that crouch row position, skating is huge. Goes without saying that swimming, meaning triathletes as well, would really benefit from the Airofit because you don't fully expand your lungs, and because you're already limiting it, it takes even more strength, which then takes more of that energy away from the working muscles. So I just recommend all athletes out there to get an Airofit. I really love the device and I've been using it for so many years. And if you're not an athlete, well, the list of studies when it comes to general health is much longer than 1,000 studies. So feel free to dive into that on Google. Clearly, it's gonna help you if you have any symptoms or struggles with breathing in general. If you're an ex-smoker or a smoker at the moment, it's gonna help you lots. And also for sleeping, I think that's been the main thing for me. I track my HRV, my resting heart rate. When I've taken pauses from the Airofit after a week already, I see those numbers go in a negative direction. And when I compare it to prior to using the Airofit, it's pretty wild. You get a lot deeper sleep, and I had a lot of fun measuring snoring with a couple of different apps. And the average was that I decreased my snoring by 3 times. So basically went from snoring 40% of the night to I think about 10%. So that's been pretty significant as well. So get an Airofit. Depending on what level you're gonna use it at, or if you're an elite athlete or just using it for general health, they do have 3 different devices. They come from $350 all the way down to about $100, and it's Active, Essential, and Pro. The Pro and the Essential are both with the Bluetooth connectivity, whereas the Active is a more simple device that doesn't actually connect to your phone, but it is the same hardware as the 2 other ones. So it doesn't mean you can't do the testing, which I think is pretty interesting. It's super motivating. If you do spend 5-10 minutes on something per day and $300, it's cool knowing that it actually works. And you can also play around with what programs, even though the Airofit will give you a program specifically for your sport. And using these tests on a daily basis is gonna adapt the difficulty. And you can, of course, use the resistance levels. It's gonna indicate which one you should use, but it's gonna adapt it to your daily level. Super cool. So you're always gonna be challenged, but never overwhelmed by your breathing schedule. And again, most days are done in 6 to 8 minutes. So it's really not a lot of work for big gains. Gonna leave a link to it, and there's gonna be a discount code as well. But the Essential is basically the same as the Pro device, except with the Pro you get a bunch of features, you get a lot more training programs. So if you're not sure which one to use, you can always upgrade the Essential to the Pro later on. So that way you can save some money if you're not really sure if Airofit is your thing yet. Though I feel pretty confident when you start using it and you feel not just the measuring, but feel the difference, that you sleep deeper, seeing the heart rate go down 5-10 beats when you're at your threshold on a bike, you're gonna keep using it. So yeah, but that's an option as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Airofit is awesome. I am gonna keep using mine as I'm preparing for my 3rd Winter Olympics, and I hope you guys are gonna have fun, or at least some really serious improvement with this guy. But yeah, look up those scientific articles and just read the reviews. It's a cool device. See you around, guys.